Welcome back. The last thing we're going to do in this section is talk about contingency tables for representing qualitative data. I feel like these are actually pretty straightforward, so I'm going to just jump right into an example. An elementary school principal is curious whether a student's favorite subject is influenced by who their teacher is. So he goes around and starts asking students. He asks 10 students from Miss Aguilar's class what their favorite subject is. Of these, 3 prefer art. And let's start filling in the table as we're reading through this. That'll be quicker and less tedious. So since we have 3 students in Miss Aguilar's class preferring art, we'll put a 3 in the box that's across from Aguilar and below art. Next, we have that 2 of her students prefer geography. So we'll put a 2 in her row in the geography box. Next, we see that 4 of her class loves PE. So we'll put a 4 for the number of students in the sample of Aguilar's students who love PE. And last, 1 of them enjoys science the most. Let's keep on filling in the data that we're given, and then we'll talk about some of the other stuff in the table. I don't want to bore you, so I'm going to speed up filling in the next 2 rows for Brown and Chang. The one other thing we should do is fill in our totals. So let's start up here. This box is to fill in the total for that row. So I'm going to go 3 plus 2 is 5, plus 4 is 9, plus 1 is 10. Now that should agree with the number of students we were told were selected from Miss Aguilar's class, and indeed it does. Okay, so that's partly a check on whether your numbers make sense, and partly it's useful to have out there, as we'll see in a minute. Filling in the total for Mr. Brown's class. There's 3 plus 3, that's 6. Plus 2, that's 8. So hopefully we can see that the principal talked to 8 students from Mr. Brown's class. Let's see, is that the case? Yeah, the principal surveys 8 students from Mr. Brown's class. So those numbers add up well. Last, what about Ms. Chang's class? In our table, we have 4 plus 2 plus 2, that's 8, plus another 4, that's 12. Did the principal talk to 12 students from Ms. Chang's class? Yeah. Let's also fill in the column totals. So the total number of students that preferred art was 3 plus 3 plus 4, that's 10. The number of students that preferred geography, let's see, 5 plus 2 is 7. Then for PE, 4 plus 1 plus 2, that's also 7. And for science, we have 1 plus 1 plus 4, that is 6. What do we get if we add up the totals in this last column? Well, numerically we get, what's that? 12 plus 8 is 20 plus 10 is 30. Okay, so that's 30. But what does that represent? That should represent the total number of students that the principal talked to or surveyed. I'm going to just say total number of students sampled. So if you add up the students that he talked to from each of the 3 classes, those should add up to the total number he talked to. Now, If we add up the total row, in other words, the last row, we should get the same number, because this last row should include all the students that were sampled. It's just that this row splits them up into the categories based on their favorite subject. The total column that we just added up, that also should include all the students sampled. It simply splits them up into categories based on who their teacher is. So it's a useful check to at least add up both total rows and make sure we get the same number. So let's see. In the total row at the bottom here, 10 plus 7, 17, plus another 7 is 24, plus 6 is 30. That also confirms that our numbers seem like they're correct. Let's use our table to answer just a few quick questions. How many students in total, meaning out of all the ones the principal talked to, how many preferred art? We can see from the total at the bottom of the art column that 10 preferred art. What percent of the students sampled preferred PE? Well, we can see from the PE column that a total of 7 preferred PE. That's out of the 30 students sampled. So we'll say 7 out of 30. We'll change that to a percent using a calculator, of course. And I'm getting 0.23. So in other words, 23% of the sampled students favored PE. Last question here. What percent of the students in Ms. Chang's class preferred science? From the table, we see that 4 of her students pursued science. Now, this time we're not asked for the percent of students in the entire sample that preferred something. We're only asked for the percent of students in Ms. Chang's class that preferred science. So the total we're taking the 4 out of this time is 12. We have 4 over 12 then. That's 1/3, which is 0.3333, but I'll round off to 2 decimal places. In other words, 33% of the students who were sampled from Ms. Chang's class preferred science. That's about all we're going to do with contingency tables in this section. I just wanted to give you an introduction to bivariate data and how we represent it. We will do more with contingency tables later on.